Magnas's 2027. Their 2027 looks very different from ours. It was because they had the Magnus and we did not. On September 27th, 2020, Grant Schneider, age 18, sat in his dark bedroom, alone, with the TV flickering a static channel at him. His eyes were closed and his face looked peaceful. His lower lip hung open and let some drool out. Grant would never notice it splash onto his urine-ruined sweatpants. There was a giant gash going through all the walls of the room. The song Air by J.S. Bach played in a loop through his headphones. His unscratched, uncracked, first-generation iPhone was sitting at the corner of his bed. Sometimes the phone would have errors, due to not being updated for several years. When this happened, the music would shut off, and all of America would feel the effects until it was restored. Earthquakes rocked the American Midwest. Tsunamis decimated both coasts of the country. Randomly, in masses, people's heads would just explode. Everyone in Grant's America had learned to live in terror, although no one knew who Grant was or why he was doing this. Grant's power had allowed him to mandate a quarantine during the COVID-19 pandemic. He pushed everyone back inside, sometimes into the wrong house. They were stuck there, though, as their doors refused to open. Some said it must be God. Others said the pandemic has pointed to signs of the rapture. Countless households broke into pandemonium as this new, scary world meant that law had left. People enacted some of the worst horrors imaginable on each other, simply for being forced to live together during this tough situation. The strangers forced in would often be sectioned off into their own areas and treated as enemies, if they were lucky. At worst, they were forced out through the window. Many people had tried to escape their homes through the window. The second they felt the fresh air hit their face, they were overtaken by another feeling, immense pressure. Their tongue would begin to boil, and their lungs would inflate until they began to crack their ribs and crush their hearts. Eventually, their skin would give, and paint the side of the house with red and boiling organs. Twice during the month of October, Grant would open the doors of every home at once. Of course, many people were detonated, thinking this was a sign that the struggle was over. This was just how Grant fed his victims. He would pull foodstuffs from stores around the area to houses at random. None of it was organized. Many people would just receive spices or mixes thrown through their door. Many people were missed, too. They ate strangers or family members or pets or paper or shit if they didn't have the decency to allow themselves to starve. It should be noted that only a few days in, electricity and water stopped flowing to people's homes. Water was among the things that Grant would try to include in his foodstuffs, but it often wasn't enough for many households. The month saw the decimation of the American population. We were now at a mere 300,000 nationally, spread across our vast land. The death count was far more than anything that the pandemic was capable of. Entire states along the coast were sunk, and rips in the earth down the middle of the country were formed. The chaos only lasted 1 month, however. Grant, possibly the most powerful Magna ever, finally succumbed to the weakness that they get in exchange for their psychic powers. Their brains slowly die bit by bit as they use them. Grant finally exhausted the last bit. Grant was not a misguided altruist or a fascist. He had no grand reason to make the world like this. He was a mentally disabled teenager in a neglectful home. The only way that he could get his family to help with his problems was by lashing out with his ability. When Grant caught the coronavirus, his parents forced him to stay in his room for 2 weeks straight. He didn't understand how to turn the light on anymore, or how to change the channel on the static TV. After 3 days of sitting in the darkness, he unleashed a wave of psychic energy that slashed through his parents and through the walls of the house. After 4 more days, he put on Air by J.S. Bach. A doctor had recommended classical music to him to calm his nerves. He didn't remember that, though. He just knew that he liked the song. 7 more days, and Grant did not remember what he was doing there. He had just found a routine. He remembered that it had something to do with the quarantine. He missed his parents. He hadn't seen them in so long.